The design process. The preliminary research that any artist, designer needs to do ahead of a major project. Remember, design just simply means to plan, to organize. And so the design process is the process by which you plan things out. You organize your thoughts, you organize your ideas around how to execute the piece. So normally that consists of things like brainstorming, thumbnail sketching, rough sketching, looking at examples, finding references, communicating with others. Okay? And you can start with any one of those things. Like you might have a dream and your inspiration comes to you in an image from out of nowhere, and that's the start of it. And so maybe examples of other artists' work is where you kind of draw your inspiration. And from that you move to brainstorming and then sketching and then creating a rough. Or maybe you doodle and you happen upon an image that really resonates. And so from there you maybe rough it out and go look for examples. And then finally you end up with brainstorming, figuring out what it really means. So you can start anywhere. It's kind of up to you. But you need to do each one of these things if you really want to make sure that you're doing a good job and that your ideas are as good as they can possibly be. Many of you that probably leave lots of stones unturned and you never really push yourself to examine ways that you can make your good ideas great, right? That's what this process is about. Making sure that you're doing your best work. That you're really investigating the most successful way, the best path, right? Let's talk about brainstorming first. Let me see here. I would suggest you start with big ideas, right? You're brainstorming to flesh out your ideas, and I would start with a big idea, a universal idea. Something that lots of people can relate to. If you start with a universal big theme, then there's a better chance that you'll make connections with a larger number of people, a larger number of your viewers. Now, again, it doesn't always happen this way. Sometimes you fixate on an object, right? And from that you start to uncover the bigger idea that lies behind that object and what it symbolizes. Other times you start with the big idea, that big thematic thing that the object is going to be representative of, right? Like you find the objects that you can put into your work, the people, the places, etc., that will help tell the story, that will help reveal that deeper content. I've given you a list of big ideas and themes here, and a lot of times it may just be one of these things that you're looking at, but more often than not, big ideas relate to one another. And so you could pick out two big ideas and put them on the same brainstorming sheet, and they'll have a dialogue, and you'll come up with more interesting dynamic relationships, because each one of these big ideas can be examined from a different point of view. So look at that list of big ideas. There's also this handout that will walk you through kind of step by step, generating big ideas and taking that big idea and fleshing it out and bringing it to fruition as a visual image. But once you've determined what it is, like if you look at step 2 in this handout, about developing key concepts to investigate your big idea, there's this statement: blank is about blank, right? So this is a way to bring a couple of big ideas together. So if my big idea is identity, and I say identity is about diversity, or identity is about culture, identity is about power, right? Each one of those second big ideas amplifies the first one. So I would highly recommend you go through that exercise. Blank is about blank. Okay? And then if you look at step 3 there, if you ask the question, what does the idea of blank help us to see or understand better? What does the idea of identity help us to see or understand better? Right? And if like this brainstorming process is really more about asking questions than finding answers, right? To me, the design and the work of art that makes me stop and ask questions, and that's an interesting work of art, right? The ones that tell me all the answers right there, not so interesting, okay? And so look through this handout on big ideas. Like here's a whole section on key concepts for a few big ideas. Like one of them is identity. Key concepts like identity can be about reinvention. Identity is about status. Identity is about change, right? Identity is about appearance. Generating those key concepts around your big idea. This will help you fill out a brainstorming sheet quick, right? Now remember that brainstorming sheet, and again, read through this thing and look at ways that you can really push your ideas farther, right? Like don't accept the first thoughts that pop into your head. You need to push them. Make sure they're worth pursuing. Okay, so trust me, you don't want to make the first thing that pops into your head. Usually the thing that pops into your head first is easy because it's been done before, right? It's your job to push yourself and examine your ideas and make sure that they're worthy of your big project, right? Worthy of your voice. Filling out that brainstorming sheet, like if you put your big idea down or a couple of big ideas on the same piece of paper, and just kind of follow the breadcrumbs that lead you to new ideas and new relationships and, objects that can represent your idea, or people or places, things, whatever it takes to illuminate your idea visually. So again, this brainstorming sheet is about making connections. Like we are, as artists, focused on relationships. And that's what this brainstorming sheet is going to help you see. Like, again, you can't let these ideas just rattle around in your head. You're a visual thinker. You need to get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper, right? These are your tools. Pencil and paper. It's still the good old, the best way to plan. Good old-fashioned pencil on paper, right? And so, and for some of you, that may be just loose paper like I just showed you, or maybe you've got a sketchbook, right? And you're going to brainstorm on one side and thumbnail on the other. Whatever works, right? You're going to make these brainstorming sheets and sketches and take photographs of them to turn them in many cases. So pencil and paper, so important. All right. And, I want to see brainstorming sheets that are truly fleshed out and really thought-provoking, right? I want to see that you've actually pushed the idea and that you're not just writing down fluff, right? This is not meant to be an exercise that bores you. It's not busy work. This is you really pushing yourself to make something great. Not just settle for the first thing that pops into your head, not to settle for mediocrity, but to go farther. There's a little animation that shows you how a brainstorming sheet might develop. In fact, I've got, if you download the PNG file, you can actually see it all at once and how my ideas might have evolved surrounding the identity, public versus private. And each one of these elements has a relationship that I could kind of amplify in a work of art. There's a brainstorming sheet. right? A different one about the idea of containment, the idea of inside versus outside. And here are some thumbnail sketches of how that brainstorm might evolve into a work of art. The thumbnail sketching process is typically about working out composition. It's not about drawing one object at a time, which is confused. Like some of you get confused and you draw each different object. No, I want you to draw all of the objects to form a composition. It's how you arrange all of the elements in your work of art that I'm interested in, and that you should be interested in. Like, where are you going to put the focal point? How are you going to set it apart? You know, is there a sense of motion running through the design? Have you pushed shadows to examine the value pattern? Where are the lights and the darks in this piece? You can pull out color too, right? Get colored pencils out or markers or watercolor paint and explore color in this process as well. You can jot down little notes next to it. One thing's important, like I need you to put all of them on one page so that you can see the development. And if you do more than 5, that's fine. I just need a single page. Show me a single page. And I need you to separate each one of those thumbnails. I don't want them bleeding into one another, running into each other. Draw completely, separate boxes. Some landscape, some portrait, vertical or horizontal, I mean. All right. So work out the composition like with your thumbnail sketches. And then once you've figured out which thumbnail sketch is the best, that says the, what you want to say, it illuminates the idea the best, then make a larger rough sketch of it. Right? It doesn't have to be a perfect drawing, although I do want you to try, right? If you're not great at drawing, I want you to really try and do your very best. Let's not do stick figures. Try to actually draw the figure, and if you will look at a reference, it'll help you. Okay, so the more you use your eyes, the more you feed your eyes, the better. For each project, you should have some examples, right? And again, depending on your project, they may be like, a few JPEGs, or if you've got, several JPEGs, you can turn them into a contact sheet. Certain programs will help you to do that, like Photoshop. You can get a folder of the images that you gather from the internet or off your phone, and basically it'll take the contents of that folder and lay it out for you. It's important to remember when you're going to look for your, inspirational examples, if you're doing it out, like getting them from the internet, make sure that you find the artist's name and make the title of that file, the name of that file, the artist's name. That way you can find that artist again if you need to later. Okay? So this is essentially what's going to, this is a typical design process research folder, right? Brainstorming a big idea, thumbnail sketches of what the composition might look like, a rough sketch that kind of finalizes placement and add a little more detail, right? And then a page of inspirational images, right? And you go out and you look for those examples, those inspirational images, because you need to educate yourself about the culture and what's out there, what's already been done before, what hasn't been done before, who's doing what. Like, your job as a designer is to know your culture. If you're not looking and paying attention and finding out who your heroes are, those inspirational figures in your life, you're not doing your job. You've got to have your influences and you've got to celebrate them. This process of planning and organizing your ideas is so critically important. It will save you. If you've got an okay idea, a so-so idea, this process can help you make it great, right? It'll help you organize and improve what you're doing. And when you're inspired and as an artist, as a designer, like the good ideas are just coming to you left and right, this process will help you organize it and execute it to the best of your ability. And when you're not inspired, right? When you're desperate, if you will walk through this process, it will help you generate ideas that weren't there before. Seriously. This process has saved me so many times I cannot tell you, and it will do the same for you if you trust it. Okay? It's so important that you plan ahead of time. You know, before you invest all that time in creating something, you got to make sure that it's worth doing. And this design process will make sure that you're doing the best work that you possibly can. Again, get your ideas out of your head onto a piece of paper, and you're going to improve dramatically as a visual thinker. All right, there you have it. Good luck.